the original Ruger LC9. And the question to ask, is the old still good for everyday carry? So recently I was digging around in the safe there one day and I come across my original everyday carry, and I guess I had a nostalgia moment. I decided to pull it out, wear it for the day. I even took it not too long after that to the range, shot a few shots through it, and it just got me questioning, are older guns like this still adequate to carry? Now, a little bit about this. I said the original because this isn't a LC9S or AC9 or anything. This is the original hammer-fired LC9. It still has the internal hammer, you can see it right in there, and the super long trigger pull that everybody complained about. But at the time, whenever these come out, they were kind of praised for that. A lot of people called it, oh, that's a good self-defense trigger, you know, because it's a long trigger. You don't accidentally shoot yourself in the leg with it or nothing like that. Definitely was drop safe compared to today's guns. We've seen some troubles recently. This was, I think, around 2012 when I got this. When they first come out, they were so new out. I actually had a hard time finding a holster that fit them correctly. You know, we were having to buy a lot of kind of universal holsters, I guess. But I mean, this all got started with their original LCP. They were very popular for many years. People wanted a little bigger. Now this one has had a few upgrades to it. I'll discuss them in a moment. But ironically, some of the things that they were praised for back then, when I was reading a lot of reviews on them, are things people look down on them now. One being the longer trigger. Like I say, a lot of them reviewed that as being, oh, that's a safe trigger. That's what you need. Also, they had external safeties. It had this chamber indicator thing whenever it's loaded. And it did have a thing where if the magazine was released, it would not fire. Mine mysteriously one day when I took it apart to clean it, I put it back together, that changed. You know, I think it's okay though. But things like that, nowadays somebody would say, man, you don't want a manual safety. You don't want a long, heavy trigger. You don't need an indicator on top. You don't need this, don't need that. And the fact that it was only a single stack. The original magazines were these style here, you know, a little 7+1. You know, you could get a little pink extension. And then, of course, they had the extended 9-round magazines to go with them. But nowadays, this gun with a magazine this size would probably have 15 rounds in it. I mean, they've come so far with these little stack and a halves. And one of the things, though, that has really changed, well, like the manual safeties, the long triggers, I'm just going to be honest, back in 2010, 2012, like that, holster selections were different. There was still a lot of people just putting these things in the pocket, no holsters, no nothing, or it'd be some little universal nylon holster, very, very little safety on the trigger. I even seen some leather holsters made to go on it, pocket holsters that would have a cutout for the trigger, so you could actually never take it out of the holster but be able to engage the trigger. And people would carry that in their pocket every day. So in a situation like that, you would not want a very light, very short trigger. Now, I mentioned about some updates and everything. There's one, speaking of the trigger, I think it was around 2015. It was a company, I believe it was Fort Wayne Tactical. I'm not even sure if they're in business anymore. They made a spring kit for these. Now, it was some other companies that were making kits that replaced the, you know, internal trigger bar, replaced the trigger and all. This was just a spring kit that really lightened up the trigger. Like originally these things probably were like 9-10 pound triggers, but once I did that, it lightened it down a lot. Let's see if I can do this here. I can pull the trigger now with my pinky, but yet it has been super, super reliable. I mean, I have put thousands of rounds through this thing. Also, another thing, I didn't like the original factory 3-dot sights. They were little bitty white dots. So around that same time, about 2015, I'd seen a company had some fiber optic sights. I put them on, I didn't like them though, because it had green on the front and it had red ones in the back. And I'm like, nah, I didn't like that. So I took the back sight off, put the original back sight on, and was going to take the front sight off to swap back for the original, and I got to looking and I'm like, hey, I kind of like that. So I blacked out the 2 white dots and created this system. Ironically now, there's guns everywhere being sold, fiber optic green front, blacked out rear. So that's about the only things I've really changed up. Like I say, the magazine disconnect mysteriously stopped working one time. Uh, it is still a very reliable gun, still very shootable. Man, these things are paper thin, easy to carry, very comfortable to carry. So would this still be today a good everyday carry? Absolutely. I think, if you practice like I did whenever I first got it, everybody was leaving the safeties off, and another guy told me, he said, no, you always train with the safety on, working the safety every time. And nowadays, even if I'm wearing a Glock, if I pull it out of a holster, my thumb's automatically going to sweep. It does it every time. It's secondary to me. In the same way, triggers that are long, the big deal with them is when somebody gets used to riding the trigger, little short triggers, boom, 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 fast firing. If you don't get in that mentality, instead you let the trigger out every time, it really is not that big of a deal. I only a few times have I really had issues with that where I would short stroke the trigger and it not go off. So definitely you would want to practice with it. Is it ideal? No. I mean, yes, Hellcat or P365, very similar size, very similar weight. They got much better triggers. You can get them with or without safeties, whatever. Huger assortment of sights and optics and all that. So yeah, those would be a better choice if you were going buying something right now. But still, the question is the old still good for EDC? Yeah, it is. It's just not the perfect situation. And same way, with the smaller mag capacities, I, for years, carried 2 mags with me everywhere I went. I still do it today. Whether I'm with a high capacity gun, low capacity, I'm always going to have backup. The thing that started my train of thought on that, I was always told, FBI statistics, most shootings, protective shootings are 3 shots within 3 yards within 3 seconds. Well, that's great. But then I started watching the news and most people were attacked by multiple people. Well, if you got 4 guys come at you in a gas station and 3 shots per guy, 6 shots ain't going to be enough. So, I always recommend carrying extra ammo as much as you can possibly carry comfortably. Don't be ridiculous, carry 50 rounds on you, but it never hurts to have a little extra. Speaking of if the old is still good, very popular back then was, of course, the Hornady Critical Defense. I carried them a lot in this gun for many years. I will say that's not what I carry most of the time nowadays. But what I liked about them back then was they reliably expanded, but they didn't massively expand. A lot of these shorter barrel guns had lower velocity. Well, if you had a bullet like a Gold Dot or something like that that had a massive amount of expansion, it would sometimes restrict the penetration when you would watch them do these tests. Where the Hornadys, they expanded consistently, but they weren't massive. So therefore, even at the lower velocity speeds from the shorter barrel, they still got good penetration. And that's what I was looking for, penetration and expansion combination. What did I seem to get the best? And at that time, I felt these were good, and I do think they're still adequate today. They're still some of the most popular self-defense rounds on the market. Another thing, when I talked about how holsters back then were a little hard to find for it, some of the first one of the first really fitted holster I got for it is something people look down on nowadays, and that was the original Alien Gear holster here, the all leather back end, Kydex shell. Had these old spring metal clips and all on them. I even wore this one with some different guns. You could tell the imprint there. I think I carried a Glock 19 in it for a while or something like that. But I mean, this thing actually, people talked about them being junk, but it was actually pretty good quality. I mean, I probably got this 2013, 14, somewhere like that. And I probably wore this gun for 6 or 7 years every day. I didn't wear it every day in this holster because, having to take off and on, I had to find a little different system. But most of the time when I put this thing on and I would leave the house, be gone all day long, it was comfortable for me. I didn't mind wearing it. It was just kind of cumbersome getting on and off, things like that kind of led me astray from it. But overall, I mean, I wore it that day recently that I pulled it out. And it felt awkward to me because I'm an appendix carrier nowadays, and having something in 4 o'clock position till I got comfortable with that, it felt awkward. But overall, to be an older design, older style, not bad. I know a lot of people, oh, it's not safe because it's got leather, and some think you get into the trigger. Yeah, I guess extreme situations can happen. I could also fall down the steps leaving my house and break my neck. I mean, things can happen. But as far as like a hybrid, really, these were pretty safe, you know. And as far as junk quality, I mean, good Kydex, good heavy duty steel clips, and good quality leather. I thought they were fine in the day. But like I say, that's just some products from the past, and just trying to go over the question, you know, is the old still good for EDC? Yeah, I think it would save you life. Is it ideal for today's usage? Not really. So I wouldn't go out and choose one of these over some of the other options, but if I had one, I wouldn't just rush out to get something new thinking it's going to be a life or death difference. Thanks for watching.